a marriage crumbling in a Norfolk trailer park, empty bottles scattered across a kitchen table. Outside, nuclear submarines slip silently into the Atlantic depths, carrying America's most guarded secrets. But what happens when the man entrusted with those secrets begins photographing them in the dead of night? For nearly 2 decades, John Walker treated his family like assets in a business transaction. His wife became an accomplice, his brother a source, his son the final piece in a puzzle that would reshape the Cold War itself. This isn't just the story of one man's betrayal. This is the story of how a failing marriage in small-town America handed the Soviet Union the keys to deciphering over 1 million classified military communications. The question that haunts intelligence analysts to this day: how does a Navy petty officer with a high school dropout record gain access to cryptographic systems so sensitive that their compromise could alter the strategic balance between superpowers? And why did it take 18 years for anyone to notice? Don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. You are not here by accident. 1955. A teenage thief named John Walker stands before a judge in Scranton, Pennsylvania. His crimes are petty: stolen car parts, small-time burglaries that netted him little more than pocket change. His older brother Arthur sits in the courtroom, wearing a Navy uniform. Arthur sees something in John that others have missed. Not potential for good, perhaps, but potential nonetheless. The judge offers John a choice: military service or prison time. The Walker family history reads like a blueprint for dysfunction. John Sr., their father, drowns his failures in alcohol while working odd jobs for Warner Brothers. The family moves constantly, always one step ahead of mounting debts, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and unpaid bills. Young John displays an unsettling combination of charm and ruthlessness even as a child. He serves as an altar boy while simultaneously throwing rocks through church windows. He organizes paper routes and works as a movie theater usher, displaying genuine business acumen, then steals from the church donation box with the same calculating efficiency. This contradiction defines Walker throughout his life: the ability to excel at legitimate work while simultaneously pursuing criminal activities with equal dedication. By 1956, John Anthony Walker Jr. has become Radio Man Walker, assigned to a destroyer escort in the Atlantic Fleet. The transformation appears remarkable. A high school dropout who couldn't hold down honest work now operates some of the Navy's most sophisticated communication equipment. But is transformation the right word? Or has Walker simply found a more lucrative venue for his criminal instincts? The Navy promotes him rapidly. His performance reviews glow with praise. By 1963, he holds top-secret cryptographic clearance, access to the codes that protect America's nuclear submarine fleet. Walker's path to this position reveals the first critical security failure. The background investigation that should have flagged his criminal history somehow overlooks or dismisses his teenage arrests. The investigators see a young man who found direction through military service. They miss the calculating intelligence that drove him to crime in the first place. His early assignments take him to the edge of the world's most sensitive military operations. He observes nuclear tests in the Pacific, witnesses surveillance missions off the Soviet coast, learns the intricate procedures that protect America's strategic communications. Each experience provides another piece of the puzzle Walker is unconsciously assembling. Knowledge of what information has value, understanding of how that information flows through military channels, recognition of the gaps in security that could be exploited by someone with his particular combination of access and amorality. Walker's superiors see dedication where they should perhaps see calculation. They see loyalty where something far more dangerous is taking root. The man they trust with their most sensitive communications is already learning to photograph documents in darkness, already memorizing the locations of Soviet embassy buildings in Washington, already planning the largest intelligence breach in Cold War history. But Walker's most dangerous asset isn't his security clearance or his technical knowledge. It's his ability to compartmentalize morality, to separate his professional competence from his personal ethics in ways that will prove catastrophic for American national security. December 1967. Walker drives his red MG through the streets of Washington, carrying a manila envelope filled with cryptographic keycards. The decision to betray his country doesn't arrive as a dramatic moment of ideological awakening. Instead, it emerges from a series of mundane financial pressures that reveal Walker's true character. His marriage to Barbara Crowley in 1957 produces 4 children in rapid succession. The couple lives in cramped military housing, struggling on Walker's modest Navy salary, while Barbara battles depression and begins drinking heavily. Walker's attempts at civilian business ventures fail spectacularly. His investment in a Charleston bar called the Bamboo Snack Bar drains their savings without generating profit. He works part-time jobs, driving cabs, shuttling rental cars, but the additional income barely covers their mounting debts. The financial pressure exposes something darker in Walker's personality. He suggests to Barbara that she turn to prostitution to earn money. When she refuses, he responds with violence, beatings that leave her with black eyes and broken ribs. But Walker's domestic brutality pales beside his growing political cynicism. He begins viewing the Cold War as an elaborate fraud perpetrated by both superpowers to justify military spending. The ideological struggle between democracy and communism strikes him as manufactured theater designed to enrich defense contractors and political elites. This cynicism provides the psychological framework Walker needs to rationalize what comes next. Inside the Soviet embassy, security officer Yakov Lukish receives an unexpected visitor. The American claims to be a naval officer with secrets to sell. No ideology, no political conversion, just business. Lukish has trained for this moment his entire career, yet Walker's directness catches him off guard. Most potential defectors arrive with elaborate justifications, complex motivations, psychological needs that require careful handling. Walker offers none of that complexity. He wants money. They have money. The transaction couldn't be simpler. But simplicity often conceals the most dangerous arrangements. The documents Walker provides are genuine, cryptographic settings that would allow the Soviets to decode American naval communications from the previous month. Dead information, Walker tells himself. Historical curiosities that can't possibly harm current operations. The KGB sees something different. They see patterns, methodologies, insights into American cryptographic thinking that could prove invaluable if applied systematically over time. What Walker doesn't understand, or chooses not to understand, is that cryptographic intelligence operates on different principles than conventional military secrets. A single code key can unlock thousands of messages. Understanding one encryption system can provide insights into others. Even historical communications can reveal operational patterns that remain relevant for years. $5,000 changes hands. Walker receives a miniature camera and detailed instructions for future contact. The KGB's operational security impresses Walker. Dead drops in suburban Maryland forests. Signal sites using discarded soda cans. Communication schedules that minimize personal contact while maximizing intelligence flow. He leaves the embassy undetected, driving back to Norfolk with more cash than his Navy salary provides in 6 months. His wife Barbara notices the money immediately. Walker claims he's found part-time work. She doesn't believe him, but her suspicions lead in the wrong direction. Barbara thinks her husband is having an affair. She has no idea he's committing treason. The irony reveals something profound about Walker's character. He's simultaneously cunning enough to evade FBI counterintelligence for nearly 2 decades and reckless enough to leave evidence of his crimes scattered around his house, where his alcoholic wife can discover them. This contradiction, meticulous operational security combined with startling personal carelessness, will eventually prove fatal to Walker's entire network. 1974. 7 years into his secret career, Walker faces a problem that would end most espionage operations. He's losing access. His Navy assignments have moved him away from the cryptographic centers where the most valuable intelligence flows. The KGB payments have decreased accordingly. Walker's lifestyle demands more money than his current position can provide. The solution reveals something chilling about Walker's character. Rather than accept reduced income or risk exposure by seeking better access himself, he decides to recruit others. But Walker's approach to recruitment demonstrates the same calculating intelligence that made him valuable to the Soviets. He doesn't randomly approach potential assets. Instead, he identifies individuals with specific vulnerabilities that match his operational needs. Jerry Whitworth becomes Walker's first major acquisition. A fellow Navy radio man with similar background, troubled childhood, financial problems, resentment toward authority. The parallels between Walker and Whitworth run deeper than surface similarities. Both men come from dysfunctional families. Both struggled academically before finding direction in military service. Both harbor deep cynicism about the institutions they serve. But where Walker possesses an almost supernatural ability to compartmentalize his emotions, Whitworth retains traces of conscience that will eventually prove problematic. Walker approaches the recruitment with the patience of a professional manipulator. He frames the operation as consulting work for allied nations. He emphasizes the financial benefits while minimizing the risks. The deception works because Walker understands something fundamental about human psychology. Most people will rationalize almost anything if the price is right, and the justification sounds reasonable. Whitworth's initial contributions exceed Walker's expectations. His assignment to the USS Enterprise provides access to aircraft carrier operations that fascinate Soviet naval analysts. His technical expertise allows him to photograph complex cryptographic manuals that would take lesser operatives weeks to process. But Walker's ambitions extend beyond professional colleagues. The decision to recruit family members reveals the depths of Walker's moral corruption. Most spies draw lines between their professional betrayals and their personal relationships. Walker recognizes no such boundaries. By 1979, he's attempting to recruit his teenage daughter Laura, an Army communications operator. The approach is characteristically manipulative. Walker frames the recruitment as a way for Laura to help pay for college while serving her country's allies. Laura's refusal doesn't discourage Walker. If anything, it confirms his assessment that family members require different approaches than professional colleagues. His son Michael, barely out of high school and desperate for paternal approval, proves much more receptive. Michael Walker represents everything tragic about his father's influence. A young man seeking direction finds instead a pathway to treason. A son hoping to earn his father's respect discovers that respect comes only through participation in criminal conspiracy. Walker's recruitment of Michael demonstrates his ability to exploit the deepest human emotions for operational purposes. He frames the espionage as father-son bonding, as an opportunity for Michael to prove himself worthy of Walker's attention and approval. The psychological manipulation succeeds completely. Michael eagerly embraces his role in the spy ring, viewing it as evidence that his father finally considers him mature enough for adult responsibilities. The Walker spy ring has become a family business, and like most family businesses, it carries the seeds of its own destruction. But for now, Walker believes he has achieved something remarkable. A network of assets spanning multiple military services, bound together by blood ties and financial incentives that should ensure their silence and cooperation for decades to come. He has no way of knowing that his greatest asset, the family loyalty he has so ruthlessly exploited, will ultimately become his greatest vulnerability. 18 years. That's how long the Walker network operates before anyone in American intelligence notices the massive hemorrhaging of classified information. The longevity of Walker's operation raises uncomfortable questions about American counterintelligence capabilities during the height of the Cold War. How does a network of amateur spies, led by a high school dropout with a criminal record, evade detection for nearly 2 decades? Part of the answer lies in Walker's operational discipline. Unlike ideological spies who often seek attention or validation for their actions, Walker maintains perfect emotional detachment from his espionage activities. He treats his betrayals as routine business transactions, displaying none of the behavioral changes that typically alert security professionals to potential threats. But Walker's greatest protection comes from an unexpected source: the institutional arrogance of American military intelligence. The possibility that ordinary enlisted personnel could penetrate and compromise the most sensitive cryptographic systems simply doesn't occur to most security officials. They focus their counterintelligence efforts on protecting against sophisticated foreign operatives and high-level political defections. Walker and his network operate beneath their radar, trusted insiders whose access seems natural, whose behavior appears normal, whose motivations remain hidden behind facades of professional competence. This invisibility allows Walker's network to expand and evolve without triggering the security reviews that should have detected their activities years earlier. The beginning of the end comes from an unexpected source: Jerry Whitworth's conscience. By 1984, the psychological strain of his double life has begun affecting Whitworth's health and mental state. Unlike Walker, who appears to suffer no moral qualms about his betrayals, Whitworth experiences increasing guilt and anxiety about the potential consequences of his actions. The catalyst for Whitworth's crisis of conscience appears to be his growing understanding of the damage his intelligence has caused. Soviet naval capabilities have improved dramatically during his years of active espionage. American naval operations that once enjoyed decisive technological advantages now face peer competitors who seem to anticipate every tactical innovation. Whitworth begins to suspect that his contributions have cost American lives, that the intelligence he provided has been used not just for defensive purposes, but to target American military operations with lethal effectiveness. Whitworth's attempt to contact the FBI demonstrates both his desperation to escape his situation and his continued fear of its consequences. His initial approach is tentative, uncertain. When investigators try to arrange a meeting, he vanishes back into anonymity, leaving only tantalizing hints about a Soviet spy network operating within the Navy. The FBI's response to Whitworth's contact reveals another institutional failure. Rather than treating his information as potentially credible intelligence requiring immediate investigation, they file it away as unsubstantiated claims from an unidentified source. This dismissive approach reflects broader problems with American counterintelligence during the 1980s. Bureaucratic inertia that prevented rapid response to potential security threats. Institutional skepticism that dismissed unconventional intelligence sources. Resource limitations that forced investigators to prioritize only the most obviously credible cases. The second break comes from Barbara Walker. Years of physical abuse, financial manipulation, and emotional torment have left Walker's ex-wife alcoholic and bitter. But Barbara's decision to contact the FBI stems from more than personal revenge. Her discovery of Walker's espionage activities in the late 1960s created a psychological burden she has carried for over a decade. The knowledge that her husband was betraying his country, combined with her participation in his dead-drop operations, created a secret that poisoned every aspect of her life. When Walker skips another alimony payment in 1984, Barbara reaches for the telephone and dials the FBI's Boston office. Her initial call is dismissed as the ravings of an intoxicated ex-wife seeking revenge. But persistence and polygraph tests gradually convince investigators that Barbara's story contains elements of truth. Still, the FBI needs more than testimony from damaged witnesses. They need evidence that will stand up in court. The investigation that follows reveals both the strengths and limitations of American counterintelligence capabilities. The FBI's surveillance operation demonstrates impressive technical competence. Dozens of agents, sophisticated equipment, coordination across multiple jurisdictions. But the same investigation also reveals how Walker's operational security has protected him for so long. His dead-drop procedures are virtually undetectable without prior knowledge of their existence. His communication methods leave no electronic traces. His personal behavior provides no obvious indicators of espionage activity. May 19, 1985. FBI surveillance teams follow Walker as he executes what they hope will be his final dead-drop operation. The package Walker leaves contains 129 pages of classified documents stolen from the USS Nimitz by his son Michael. In the pre-dawn hours of May 20th, Walker opens his hotel room door expecting to find hotel security concerned about his car. Instead, he finds FBI Special Agent Bob Hunter with handcuffs and an arrest warrant. The numbers tell only part of the story. Over 1 million compromised communications. Decades of naval superiority erased. $100 million estimated to repair the damage, if repair proves possible. But statistics cannot capture the human cost of Walker's betrayal. American sailors whose movements were anticipated by Soviet forces. Military strategies compromised before they could be implemented. Intelligence operations blown before they began. Walker's cooperation with prosecutors reveals the scope of his network, but not the full extent of the damage. Some secrets remain buried with the Soviet archives. Some consequences may never be fully understood. The sentences reflect the gravity of the crimes. Walker receives 2 life terms plus 10 years. His son Michael gets 25 years, but serves only 15. Jerry Whitworth dies in prison after receiving 365 years. Arthur Walker, whose contributions were minimal compared to the others, still receives life imprisonment. Barbara Walker, the woman whose testimony helped bring down the network, passes away in Norfolk in 2009. Her final years marked by the knowledge that she had simultaneously saved her country and destroyed her family. Today, intelligence analysts still study the Walker case as a textbook example of how personal dysfunction can create national security catastrophes. The case has influenced counterintelligence training programs throughout the American intelligence community. Walker's ability to operate undetected for 18 years forced fundamental changes in security procedures, background investigations, and monitoring of personnel with access to sensitive information. But the technical reforms missed the deeper psychological lessons of the Walker case. Walker's motivations were never complex. He needed money and had access to information that could provide it. The ideological struggles of the Cold War meant nothing to him. The lives of American servicemen meant less. This emotional detachment made Walker particularly dangerous. Ideological spies often struggle with internal conflicts that create behavioral changes security professionals can detect. They may seek validation, leave clues about their activities, or attempt to justify their actions through political statements. Walker displayed none of these warning signs. His betrayals were purely transactional, business decisions that required no emotional investment and generated no psychological stress. The simplicity of his motivations made him particularly dangerous. Ideological spies can sometimes be turned or reasoned with. Financial spies like Walker operate with the cold logic of business transactions. Walker's success also revealed critical vulnerabilities in American military culture. The trust-based security system that protected classified information during World War II and the early Cold War proved inadequate against threats from within. Military organizations depend on institutional loyalty and personal honor to function effectively. These values create environments where suspicion of colleagues is discouraged and questioning authority is viewed as insubordination. Walker exploited these cultural norms ruthlessly. His apparent dedication to military service provided perfect camouflage for his criminal activities. His willingness to volunteer for sensitive assignments was interpreted as patriotic enthusiasm rather than operational calculation. The most unsettling aspect of the Walker case may be how easily it could happen again. Despite massive security improvements since the 1980s, the fundamental vulnerabilities remain. Trusted insiders with financial problems, classification systems that rely on human judgment, family relationships that can be exploited by skilled manipulators. Modern intelligence organizations have implemented computer monitoring, psychological screening, and continuous evaluation programs designed to detect potential threats before they mature into active espionage. But these technical solutions cannot address the core human factors that made Walker's network possible. Greed, desperation, family dysfunction, and the willingness to rationalize betrayal through personal grievances. The proliferation of classified information in the digital age has actually increased the potential for Walker-style operations. A single insider with proper access can now compromise vastly more information than was possible during the era of paper documents and physical photography. Recent espionage cases have demonstrated that Walker's basic approach, identify vulnerable insiders, exploit personal weaknesses, maintain operational discipline, remains as effective today as it was during the Cold War. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of Walker's legacy lies in his complete lack of remorse. Unlike many spies who eventually express regret for their actions, Walker maintained throughout his imprisonment that his betrayals were justified by his personal grievances against the Navy and American society. John Walker died in federal prison in 2014, unrepentant to the end. He blamed the Navy for his problems, blamed his family for his failures, blamed everyone except himself for the choices that led to his downfall. His final interviews reveal a man who never understood the magnitude of his crimes or their impact on American security. To the end, he viewed his espionage activities as smart business decisions that happened to be illegal, rather than betrayals that compromised his country's safety and cost American lives. This psychological profile, intelligent but immoral, calculating but emotionally stunted, represents perhaps the most dangerous type of potential spy. Unlike ideological defectors who can be deterred through appeals to patriotism or conscience, Individuals like Walker respond only to cost-benefit calculations about personal advantage. The Walker spy ring ended, but the questions it raised about trust, security, and human nature remain as relevant today as they were during the height of the Cold War. Modern counterintelligence professionals continue to grapple with the fundamental challenge Walker's case represents: how to maintain the trust and cooperation necessary for effective organizations while protecting against the inevitable minority of individuals who will exploit that trust for personal gain. In the end, John Walker proved that the most dangerous enemies are not always those who oppose us ideologically, but those who simply see our secrets as commodities to be bought and sold. The family that sold America did so not for principle, but for profit. And that may be the most terrifying betrayal of all. The question that haunts intelligence professionals decades later is not how Walker succeeded for so long, but how many other potential Walkers remain undetected within the organizations entrusted with protecting national security. In a world where classified information has become increasingly digitized and accessible, the Walker case serves as a permanent reminder that the greatest threats to national security often come not from foreign enemies, but from the trusted insiders who know exactly which secrets are worth stealing. The legacy John Walker left behind is not just the massive intelligence compromise he orchestrated, but the knowledge that similar betrayals remain not only possible, but perhaps inevitable in any organization that must balance security requirements with operational effectiveness. 25 years after his capture, the name John Walker continues to appear in counterintelligence training programs as the template for understanding how ordinary individuals can inflict extraordinary damage on national security through nothing more complicated than greed, opportunity, and the absence of moral constraints. His case remains the gold standard for studying how personal dysfunction can cascade into strategic catastrophe, and why the human element will always represent the most unpredictable variable in any security system, no matter how technically sophisticated or procedurally rigorous.